In this video, we're going to talk about spreading VLANs across multiple switches, or what we in the networking world call VLAN trunking. Now, previously, we have discussed how you can segment a switch to create VLANs and why you'd want to do that for manageability or security or whatever reasons you have. You've segmented a switch and you've got multiple VLANs on that switch and everything's going along great and wonderful. But let's say your business grows exponentially. You hire in 15 more people and you outstrip the capacity of your current switch. So what happens if you need to split a VLAN among multiple switches? Now again, there are several reasons you might want to do this. Port density is the most obvious. Switches can only have so many physical ports in them before you start getting into the ridiculously expensive high-end data center switches. And so obviously at some point you're going to need to connect all of these new computers to a different switch. Perhaps your machines are in different physical locations. Again, maybe they're on two ends of the same floor and you just don't want to run all the cables back to your first switch, or maybe they're on different floors. Perhaps you have a dedicated management VLAN, which is a security best practice. You have a management VLAN that only certain IPs can get into, and so only those IPs can manage your switches. Or maybe you have a wireless implementation and all of your wireless access points that are spread all around the building need to dump all of their traffic into a specific VLAN or a specific set of VLANs. Whatever the situation, you need to spread your VLANs across multiple switches. And the way you do that is you create trunks for VLANs to carry the traffic between switches. In the telecom world, a trunk line is a physical media that connects two pieces of equipment that multiple conversations or multiple flows can go through. I've got a diagram on the next slide, and hopefully that makes it make a little more sense once you see that. Now, there's nothing really special about trunk ports. Trunk ports are just specially configured to only carry this tagged traffic between switches. And of course, when we get into the lab, we'll set up a trunk port, and you'll see you can pick any port to be a trunk port. It can be a fast Ethernet port, it can be a bundle of fast Ethernet ports, it can be a gigabit fiber port, it can be any port on the switch that accepts the commands, which, except under very weird configurations, it will be any port on the switch. Now, there are two methods of doing trunking, or there's two trunking protocols, if you will, ISL and 802.1q. And once I get past the little diagram on the next slide, we'll look at the pros and cons of both of those trunking protocols. So let's expand a little bit on the diagram that we had in the last video. Here's our three hosts, except this time, Tricia and Al are both in the same VLAN. They're on VLAN 10, and Ed is in VLAN 15. Now, Tricia is in a different part of the building or a different part of the world or wherever, and she's connected to one switch, and Al is connected to the same switch as Ed. So under normal circumstances, if Al sent a broadcast out on VLAN 10, Tricia would not necessarily see that broadcast because there's nothing to connect these two ports together. Enter the trunk. And again, this trunk allows you to say, any traffic you see in this switch for VLAN 10, I want you to send it out this port as well over to this other switch. This secondary switch also has VLAN 10 configured on it, and will basically take those tags off of the inbound packet and send it out to any hosts on this secondary switch that are in the same VLAN. And of course, I have a one-to-one relationship here, but you could have multiple trunk ports amongst multiple switches. You could have a ring of them. You could have them in any configuration whatsoever. So long as they are all connected at layer 2, you can spread a VLAN across as many switches as you care to install in your local physical cable plant. We'll pause here and pick up our discussion of VLAN trunking in the next video.